Hello and welcome anyone and everyone joining us today. My name is Madison Schwartz and I am with the Dentist Supply Company, or also known as TDSC.com. I'm a business development manager and I have joining me today Matthew Nelson from the California Dental Association. He's a practice analyst, and Dr. Sandretti, dentist out of Roseville, California. And today we are very excited to speak with everybody about best practices for purchasing supplies for your dental practice. So without further delay, Matthew, Dr. Sandretti, and I are going to get into a conversation, and I'm going to open it up with the first question. For Dr. Sandretti and Matthew, anything that you may have seen in your practices at the CDA of, what are the best practices for supply ordering?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madison, for having me, and thank you for TDSC for putting on this webinar. I'm excited to be included. So just a little small background about me. I own a couple of practices, and I used to do all the ordering for those practices when we were small. And then as we've grown and grown, I've implemented systems and started to pass those off to my my leads in the back and the front. And so some of the best things that I have learned over the years has been to make sure that you have a system. So don't try to do things kind of willy-nilly and on the fly. You'll end up placing way too many orders throughout the month. Sometimes it can take a month or two to really develop that system, and then being flexible with the system is important because you may have a new team member come in and they might have other ideas, or you may change your supplier, or you might change your preferences. And so being fluid with that system is important. But just having a system, whatever it is and whatever works for your practice, is really important because then you have something to fall back on. Some of the really good things we've put into place is making sure that we have a good inventory. We do inventory once a month at the end of the month, and then we place one big order at the beginning of the month. And then as needed, we'll maybe place 2 or 3 small orders, if we go through things faster, or we realize we ran out of things, or we forgot something on that first order. But, in general, keeping track of your inventory and making sure that you have a system in place to know when things are running out, whether it's a tag system, a Google document. There's companies that help you track inventory. There's lots of different ways. So whatever works for your practice, having that system in place and following it will help you to avoid missteps with supply ordering.
Yeah, I totally agree. Keeping like a simple, repeatable process that you can train your team on. It's not only going to help you with your bottom line on supplies, but it's also going to help with, the cost of staff labor that you're going to use when they're trying to hunt down and find supplies if it's disorganized, or, even disrupt patient flow if you run out of product and have to reschedule a patient because of that. But, having some kind of organization, some system where everything's labeled and stored correctly, and then you shop from the back to fill your rooms and then see like what's open on the shelves that you need to order, or some kind of system like that where your team can follow it efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. Time is a huge resource that we often forget to monetize in the process of tracking down our supplies and managing that inventory. So Dr. Sandretti, it sounds like your method is very inventory and need-based by procedure. We also hear a lot in the supply industry about measuring or monitoring your dental supplies by your by overhead, right? By the cost, and setting a budget goal. Before we jump on to new topics, I know that this method has been discussions for many years in the dental industry. Can you elaborate? Does your practice use anything like budgeting, or is it very much based on the procedures that you have on the calendar for the month?
Yeah, so we try to stick to, I think it's 5% of the previous month's production, net production for the following month's supplies. So, if you have a little bit of a down month, you're not using as many supplies, so you probably have some excess. So you shouldn't need to order as much the following month. If you have a really big month, then you probably used a lot more. And so you're probably low on some of the things, and the next month you might need to order a little bit more. So my team has a budget of, I believe it's 5 or 6% total of the previous month's net production. And we do that. So I have two main practices, and we combine our ordering for those two practices because it's more efficient that way. So it's between the two practices, add it together, 5 to 6% of that that they try to stay under. And that includes everything from like bone graft materials, implants, composite, bonding, anything like iTero sleeves, like anything that would be considered a consumable goes into that. We do not include lab supplies. We do a lot of in-house labs like millicrowns and 3D printing. We don't include lab supplies in that because that's kind of like a lab cost. So we keep those separate. But in general, we have about a 5% budget, and that first order of the month, we try to keep that to about half of that budget. So that leaves us with a little bit more leeway. If we have a big implant case coming up, we can order. If we have, just need something extra, we have some leeway there. And my team is incentivized. My leads are incentivized to stay underneath that budget. If they stay under the budget for the month, then I think they get like a $50 bonus or something like that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's awesome to hear too, like how you have the number of orders too to save on those shipping costs. And I think what we're hearing now is I think it's like creeping up to 6.5 to 7% of collections. So like you can tell that you're on a really efficient process too.
I hold a strict line.
Yeah. And smart to plan for the leeway too. What we see practices who try to implement the percent of production rule and try to do that one big purchase in the month and don't leave enough leeway for the implant case or the bone graft or the materials that might be one-off that's needed. So the onesie twosies absolutely add up, and it's important to plan for those. And thank you for sharing on the incentive program. I do want to touch on that a little bit later in the conversation because I do think that's so interesting, and it's been, in my experience, a little bit polarizing in the practice space. So we'll love to hear how that's working for your staff. And but shifting gears, I really want to know from the dentist perspective, what or if any have you noticed supply ordering trends over the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously COVID changed the world. So I'm kind of in a unique position because I bought my first practice November of 2019. So I was like, yay, when you're a practice owner, like learning the ropes. It was small, I was trying to like figure out what suppliers I was going to use, start to negotiate things, and then like 3 months later, everything went to COVID. So, my whole practice ownership time has essentially been just navigating the absolute insanity of running a business. And a big part of that is have been new things and backlogs and, or back orders and things that are just out that shouldn't be out. Like, why are my bonding pens? Why can't I get my bonding pens tomorrow? I don't understand. And like, oh, well, it's just not being made by Ivoclar right now. You're like, how is that possible? So, one thing I've really, really made a point of is becoming, just friendly with my local Ivoclar rep or iTero rep or those kinds of people who represent their products because they know what's going on in the supply chain of their actual products. And if you use something on a very regular basis, like I love Ivoclar composite, great. I want to make sure I have my Ivoclar bonding pin and my Ivoclar curing light and my 3-second, posterior composite, whatever. I want to have my system. If I don't have my system, my day is not going to go great because I want my composites to go exactly the way I want my composites to go. And when they had supply chain difficulties, we were prepared for that because my rep let me know, hey, I've been seeing on our supply chain that the little cannulas for our adhesive pens are running out soon, so you should stock up on those. And so I told my back office, and they did a double order that month, and so we never had a problem. So making sure that you don't just, trust that everything's going to be there is really important these days. And it's kind of crazy that we have to be thinking so far ahead for supplies like that, but that's just the world we live in right now. Also having multiple suppliers is important because there might be, one supplier might have something in stock and another might not. So you have to be able to go out into the different companies and see who's going to have what that day, especially if you need it right away. And so, some of the things like price shopping and whatnot, like you can do a lot of those things, but a lot of times it's like just out of necessity, I need to be able to find someone to order from. So staying on top of your inventory, being in touch with your supply reps, and just the overall general market of what's going on in dental supplies is really, really important. I mean, we saw it with PPE, how quickly that went out. People were searching all over the world for gloves and masks, and you have to be very resourceful. And the more resourceful owners and supply orderers, the better your practice is going to run, because you're never going to run out of things.
It's almost like COVID is like this generation's version of like the Great Depression, almost. Like, people that grew up in the Great Depression, like, they go into their houses and they have hundreds and hundreds of canned goods. And then, like you started hearing about going into offices and finding like tons and tons of boxes of masks and stuff. Like, so like scared that it's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. And I would hope we were better prepared from what we learned from the last one, but you never know. And truly, we didn't know. And what an insane time to purchase your first practice. I appreciate you sharing that story, because I think no matter where you are in your dental career, a lot of people will be able to relate to those challenges you faced. And so building off of that, what are some things that have worked, and maybe what are some mistakes that your practice has made when ordering supplies? I know you mentioned you look at inventory, procedures, as well as you have your 5% budget. So how does your team check all those boxes, what works and what has absolutely not worked for you?
So one of the things we switched to, I'd say in the last like 18 months, is getting clear tip out bins. And so that's been really, really great. It's kind of a big investment up front, because you have to like literally gut your whole supply closet and like reorganize everything and order all the bins and like really plan for it. And so we did that, not this past Christmas break, but the Christmas break before. And some of my team wanted some hours over the closure. And I was like, great, we're going to switch to tip out bins. And as tedious and as annoying as it was during that time, it has been really, really life-changing for just seeing all the inventory. Also, we put it out on our main countertop, like behind sterilization. So it's there all the time. People can find everything very easily, very quickly, even when we have temps coming in, because that's a really big thing these days. We just can't keep staff there all the time. So have a temp come in, she can find that, cord I want, or that composite I want, or that burr I want, like so much easier than like sifting through a million drawers and cabinets. So clear tip out bins has been something that I'm really glad that we took the plunge and did. It's been helping with inventory. We use a tag system. So like our tag is in that tip out bin. As soon as the tip out bin is empty, they'll put the tag up for ordering, go to the closet, because we have like, excess supplies, make sure there's nothing there. If there is, refill that tip out bin, and then, keep the tag in there. So we kind of use that as our like visual inventory. And then we also like take an inventory, monthly.
Yeah, I've been reading so many articles on inventory management, and clear tip out bins seems to be like the number one thing in every article. It's such a big thing right now. And then like lean methodology too. So, companies like Nike, Motorola, Amazon have all gone to this like lean methodology, where you're trying to keep like just what you need or slightly more than what you need on the shelf, so that you, one, don't waste from expiration or things getting mixed up, but just to make it easier to find, and then increasing that, the profitability from not over ordering supplies.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Matt. Especially the expiration dates. I've found that post-COVID, because supply chains are so difficult, like things they're expiring faster than usual. I don't know if it's just because it's like a backlog on shipping, or like their warehouses, they're emptying warehouses, or like what's happening there. But, things that usually would take a year to expire are expiring like 6 to 8 months. So we have to use them more. And I hate throwing away expired things. It like kills me to throw away a dental supply because we didn't use it on time. So the tip out bins help with that. We try to keep like the things that are going to expire the first up front and use that, and then keep the stuff that we just got in the cabinets. But watching your expiration dates is really, really important. That's something I've had to get on the staff. Also checking your your operatories, because sometimes there'll be that anesthetic in there that you just like never use. And then you go to use it and you're like, crap, this is like 6 months expired and now we don't have any. And I wouldn't have even known because we didn't take it out and really go through it. So something, like you were saying, things that haven't really worked well are just not keeping an eye on that stuff. And then there's a lot of waste. So if there isn't somebody assigned to that job, or you don't have a system to go through your inventory on a regular basis, you're going to end up with expired goods that you have to throw away, which is literally wasted money, or you're going to end up not having what you need that day because you just didn't check that you had it. So again, it comes back to systems, and it comes back to having your team members or yourself just very well trained to be checking this kind of stuff. It's very important for the bottom line.
Yeah, it's funny because I worked in fast food like in high school, and there's like that term FIFO, first in, first out. And I never thought I'd be using it this far into my career now, but checking those dates, making sure that like the staff knows to like rotate the stuff going in and out.
Yeah, truly watching that waste and making it tangible. That's what I'm hearing between the bins and the tagging. It is a very hands-on process. I think it's also great. We have digital tools now too, where your suppliers, it feels like, know your inventory closet better than you sometime and are reminding you, hey, is it time to purchase this again? And just also, but being careful with those tools of, we maybe don't need the box of 500 patient napkins and can save that $50 in the budget, right? Which I think, Matthew, you were touching on a little bit with the lean inventory. I think we took the conversation to waste, but also what we see are the bulk orders, right? And it sounds like, Dr. Sandretti, your practice has really figured out a great monthly cadence to where you're not over ordering and having money sitting on your shelf. So even if you're under budget that month, was there something that maybe we didn't need the 500 quantity of of the sleeves, right? Or, the sterilization packs, whatever it was. So we definitely see that a lot as well.
Definitely. I mean, with the bulk ordering, there are things we do order in bulk, and those are things that don't expire. So if we do have money left over, or we found a really great deal on one of the websites or through one of the groups I'm in or whatever, back in 2021, I believe, my husband and I, he's an orthodontist, we placed like a $10,000 glove order because gloves were so hard to find back then. And we got such a great deal. I think it was like $3 a box per 100 or something. And they were high quality gloves. Anyways, you had to place a $10,000 order in order to get this price, right? So there are definitely things that you can be strategic on in ordering in bulk, but it's the stuff that can expire quickly that you want to be really careful on. And so again, it comes back to just being really resourceful and being very mindful of your budget and, your usage rates. Orthodontics goes through gloves like water. They see 75 patients a day, and, they need 3 to 5 sets of gloves per patient. Like, it's nuts. So that's something he spends a ton of money on, is gloves. And when we found this, it just made sense. So, just being really resourceful, being part of groups, looking at all different kinds of suppliers. CDA has partnerships with other companies and things. Like, there's so many different ways of being resourceful. It's very difficult to just be with like one supplier all the time, and that's all you use. You have to look out into the world now. It's not as easy as it used to be.
It's funny because since you mentioned other Dr. Sandretti, so you have incorporated specialties into your practice. So when you, what do you do like for supplies? Do you like have him bring his own supplies? Do you look ahead at what's the schedule and have your team know what they're looking for and order the supplies? Or what does that look like when you incorporate the specialty?
So we've brought an endodontist in, and then we have ortho come. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the similar thing. So like, if we know we have an endo day coming up, we'll contact that doctor the month before, make sure we have what we need. It's a 1-day kind of one-off thing. So typically we there's like a kind of a bigger order when we get that specialty started, making sure that doctor has all the things that they need. And then as we run out of those little things, we'll add it to our monthly order if we know we have an endo day coming. If they need something special, it might be part of that one-off special order midway through the month. But typically, you know, a lot of the specialty things that we bring in, I think the most expensive would be like if I'm doing surgery, like placing implants or bone grafts, membranes. Those are really expensive upfront costs for those procedures. So I typically don't order them unless I know I'm going to have that procedure coming, because they do expire really quickly. And if you don't use them, it's like $200 or $300 out the window of bone and membrane. We keep like maybe just a little bit on hand so that if we have a same day or something like that, but as soon as that, if we're completely out, we'll order a little bit more for next month. But if we know we have a big case coming, we'll just special order for that case.
Dr. Sandretti, it sounds like you're super hands-on with the process in your practice for supply ordering, but you did mention that you had a team that handles the majority of it. So can you please walk us through who handles that and what it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a team of 3 full-time assistants and 2 part-time assistants. And two of my full-time assistants are expanded functions. So they act as kind of the back leads. They're co-leads. One of them works at both of my practices, and then one of them just works at my largest practice. So they tend to do the ordering together, and I like that there's 2 people involved, because then if one is sick or something, the other one can take over. But also they act as like a checks and balances for each other. So typically Sharon, she's one of the EF2s in my Sacramento location. She'll put the big order in for the big office. And then Katrina, who's the one that goes to both offices, she'll add to it for the small office and also check the inventory and kind of just be like a cross check on everything. And then Katrina actually places the order. Katrina is also in charge of watching the budget. So if we're getting close to the budget, she might say like, hey, let's hold off on that secondary order this month. We're pretty good on supplies. Let's wait till next month. Or actually, like, this month is really busy. We need to, order some extra stuff. Then she could come to me or my business manager and say, hey, we need an extra $1,000 for supplies. Can I get that approved? That hasn't happened yet because we've been very good on our supplies. But if it needed to happen, she could do it. So I like having 2 people involved. If you're a smaller practice, so before I had multiple locations, my assistant would typically put the order together, and then I would be the one to check it and just make sure that because I don't know, I have like a weird knack for being like, didn't we order that like last month? I swear we have more of that. And then they would go to the supply and be like, oops, it was behind something. So, as an owner, like you can be as hands-on or hands-off as you want. I'm very budget conscious. And I just have like a weird knack for remembering random stuff. So, if you want to be hands-on with it, just keeping your finger on what's happening with supply ordering is going to help save you money and just keep your inventory nice and tight. But if you want to be more hands-off, then I would recommend having 2 people just cross-check each other, making sure that we're not double ordering or anything.
Sounds like you do a really good job of training your team and empowering your team.
It's really important for your team to feel like they have control over supplies, because they're the ones that are stocking the rooms. They're the ones that are, utilizing all the materials. And if you run out of something, you could be like, hey, what happened with the order? And then, they have to take ownership of it. So I think it's super important that if you're not doing all the ordering yourself, that you do delegate that to your team, but have a pulse on it, have a budget for them that you're comfortable with, maybe even give them half the budget that you're actually comfortable with. That way, if they go over, you're not like, oh my God, where am I going to find that money from?
That's great advice. And do they both receive incentives for coming in under budget?
Yeah, so the leads will get, I believe it's $50 as a monthly bonus if they stay under budget. And it's not a lot of money, but shoot, if we stay under 5% of supplies, like for a month, I'm happy to give them a $50 bonus to be like, great work, ladies. We didn't waste anything this month. We didn't overbuy, and keep it up.
Absolutely. And do you find that having the 2 leads split the task of ordering helps reduce the time that they devote to supply ordering? I mean, what does that we talked about time as a resource earlier, right? So how much time do you think they spend away from procedures versus and assisting the practice versus ordering supplies?
I kind of don't know that answer, and I kind of like that I don't know that answer. Because that means that they're efficient enough that they're present for all the procedures that are necessary, but also taking care of their administrative duties. So we have days that are a little bit slower. Like if my associate is there, the day might be a little bit slower than if we have 2 doctors there. So, I think they utilize their time very well, and they know when it's important to get that order in and have it ready. I think typically they'll start the order at the first Monday of the month, and then it'll be approved by Wednesday and have it in the office by the end of that first week. So we've gotten it down to a science now. And a lot of that, again, comes down to just having good systems in place, good inventory control, budgeting, and people that feel empowered to make the supply orders, and I don't have to check them anymore.
I remember when we were talking, I think last week, we were talking about some of this stuff. And I remember also you mentioning, I think you cut it down to 2 or 3 major suppliers, right? So that you're not spending time, I guess, comp shopping 100 different suppliers and saving that time too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is something we've done. We've definitely narrowed it down to probably 2 to 3 main suppliers, and then some very random ones. Like I just ordered gloves off some random one because I saw such a great deal. And again, gloves are just they don't go bad. So you have to be resourceful in those kinds of things. But having your number of suppliers cut down, or one main supplier that you have really great pricing with, but again, that supplier might be out of something you need. So you need someone else to just be available for you as a secondary option or tertiary option. So that helps a lot. I think sometimes some practices can be so focused on finding the absolute best deal possible, but you're really only saving a few dollars. And so, it's almost like driving around and around trying to find the cheapest gas station, right? It's oh my gosh, just it's 10 cents a gallon difference. You're going to save max $2. So sometimes I think, that time management is really important. And so I've kind of created a system. Part of the system is you check this supplier first. If it looks like something we've been paying the same, it's not astronomically high, we just go with that. And then after that, if they're out of it, then we go to this next one. And then we have to get really creative. Then we might go to some of the other ones. So we kind of just have a list and a hierarchy of how we order. And Madison, you were saying, as your suppliers kind of know what your inventory is, the only way to really get that is if you use the same suppliers consistently. So that way they're going to be hey, you ordered this 3 months ago, and before that you ordered it 3 months before that, so you're probably ready to order. I mean, that's a great system to use, because that might trigger a new back lead or a new assistant to be oh, let me go check the inventory on that random thing we use once every 3 months. So again, it's staying consistent with whatever supplier you're using is important, but also being resourceful and having multiple options when needed.
Yeah, I think once you start jumping around to so many different suppliers, I don't know if you're even really saving money when you factor in all the shipping charges, right?
Okay. So have to watch out for those. And I know you mentioned having 2 to 3 of your preferred suppliers. So does this, in those weird situations when you get to that 3rd or 4th weird, we need to find this from someone maybe we've never even purchased from before, does your team have any tools or apps where they're price comparing, or do they go to a search engine? What do they do in those situations?
So I think I mentioned before, we used to use a service that was kind of like Kayak for dental supplies. So you put in the dental supply that you want, and then it comes up with all the big suppliers. A TDSC is on there, Patterson, all of them, right? They're all lined up. And then you can price shop, and then you can click, I want this one, I want that one, I want this one. It's tedious because it creates 5 different orders for you with all, it creates the orders, which is nice with all the different suppliers. But now, you're having to track shipping from this company, and then shipping from that company, and then this one's overnight, and this one's 5-day. And then, it creates a very big headache in terms of having to just track all those things. What if you never get the package? That's another thing. Shipping these days is just, they could say 2-day shipping and it could show up in a week. You just have no idea. So, sticking with some of your tried and true suppliers is, and And well-recognized suppliers is very important because you know that they're going to have their own back-end systems in place and they're going to stand up to their products. So like if it got lost in the mail or the shipping didn't happen or I don't know what, you're going to be able to call them and be like, I didn't get whatever I ordered, check your tracking. I've had it happen with some of these little ones where you order something kind of one-off and we never receive it or it got lost or went to the wrong address and we call and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. So you just have to be, mindful of that. If you start ordering from a lot of different kind of bargain suppliers, you can get screwed sometimes. And you just, that's also a waste of time and money that your team is now trying to hunt down a package.
Yeah. And unfortunately happens more than we like to see. So we talked very lightly on pricing as a part of the budget strategy. And so going off, how do promotions impact your decisions, or is it just an added bonus that you have an additional discount that week on that product? Or does your team hunt for these promotions? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that. So I mean, you probably can see from some of my answers that I'm a big, found a good deal kind of gal. And so promotions are huge. I really appreciate when some of my big companies, Ivoclar, Align will never give you a deal, but that's fine. With iTero. But, the composite companies, the, Dentsply will have a lot of times like buy two, get one on like Paladent rings or, hand pieces. Like, I think that's really great because if I know that it's something we're going to use and it's not going to expire, like the little matrices or the wedges or whatever, like that stuff that doesn't expire. So if we've got the money for it in the budget and my team says, hey, they're doing a 2+1 promotion, let's stock up on wedges and matrices, I'm all for it. Because that's just going to save me money down the road, right? Like it's going to be a little bit expensive right now. And if we have the money in the budget, great. And then next month, we're not going to have to order. My team just stayed under budget and they get their bonus. So, I'm all for those promotions. I think it's really important. But again, you have to be staying on top of that stuff. And I think, again, having relationships with your supplier representatives from the actual companies. So the Ivoclar rep, the Dentsply rep, the whoever, 3M, those are all really important. They're all my friends. They will text me and tell me, hey, Dr. Sandretti, we're having a 4+2 promotion. I know you use this all the time. Highly recommend you take advantage of it. Also, like anytime there's big meetings, like the CDA meeting or midwinter or ADA, like they always have promotions around those. So I always ask them like, hey, I know I didn't go to the meeting because I have 2 little kids at home and 6 practices, but I know you guys had some good deals at the meeting and I would love to capitalize on that. And so a lot of times the reps can actually get you those free goods, even if they're not offering it on the supply websites. So it goes back to just good relationships and making sure you are very resourceful with what you're ordering and when.
Yeah, that sounds like you're prepared. Do you ever send your people with a list to those meetings or shows to go hunt down the best deals?
Not usually, but I know when the shows are happening. And so we just ask to get the same deals and they always give it to us.
I was going to ask with the relationship piece, like how often do you find like, hey, Dr. Sandretti, you never order gloves with us. Do you want to try? Do you want to sample some of these? Or do you get to try new things or try new product because of that?
Yeah, definitely. So because I have such a great relationship with my Ivoclar rep, he gave us like an entire whitening system to try. He's given me all kinds of new anterior composites that they're coming out with. He's like, hey, try this. Give me a review. Let me know what you think. How did it handle? And I'm happy to do that. I mean, it's from a company I trust and it's from a company that I utilize. So I'm sometimes hesitant to be like an early adopter of like brand new things from someone I don't know what it came from. But from the big companies that I utilize all the time, I'm happy to try stuff. And then shoot, I just got free goods and that's great. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to stay up with the modern times. And, one mistake I see with a lot of dentists often is that they get very stuck in like what they use. And I only use this and this is exactly how I do it. And that's fine. I said the same thing before. I want my composite to be the same. I want it to go, I want everything to go the way I want it to go. However, sometimes it is important to evolve into a new system because you never know when you're going to find something that makes your life so much easier. one of those things was a 3-second curing light. Like I told my team the other day, I was like, if you took away my scanner and my 3-second curing light, I would quit. Like, I'm done. I'm out. Can't do it. I can't sit there for 20 seconds and cure a composite because my brain will explode. So, there's just like little things that dentists, we're weird people. We have to have things like exactly the way we want it. And as soon as I find something that makes my life easier and works and is better for the patient too, because they're getting a high quality product, a high quality filling in faster time, it's a win for everybody.
Awesome. Well, you said the dentists were weird, not me. So that'll be the sizzle clip for this video. Well, we are close to time, and in the essence of time, I want to say I've never had this much fun talking dental supplies. I love hearing the different takes and approaches, and it really sounds like you found the fit for your practice. And I do just want to emphasize that you said that it's a system that works for you is going to be the best system that you're actually going to use. But are there any final parting words of wisdom that you have for the audience, Matthew or Dr. Sandretti?
My best advice, like I said, started off from the beginning, just make sure there's something in place. Trying to order willy-nilly, randomly, off a whim, you're going to way overstock. It's like going to the grocery store when you're hungry, right? Like, oh my gosh, we haven't ordered in a little bit. I'm just going to order all the things we use. But I'm so guilty of that. I'll go to the grocery store. I'm starving. I'll buy the cookies and the chips and the this and the that. And I'm like, shoot, I don't need any of this. Like I already had all those cookies. I didn't even check my pantry. That's why my husband doesn't let me go grocery shopping anymore, because like, forget it. I'll take care of dental supplies. You take care of grocery shopping. But, if I could only implement these systems at home, I think my home budget would be a lot better as well. But just have something, have some system, have a checks and balance. Like I said, if you're a small office and you have just a couple back office people, delegate some of the responsibility, let your team take some ownership, give them some let them feel like they are a part of that office and they will take care of you. They're going to look out for the deals. They're going to look out for the 2+1s and the 4+2s, and they might do a little bit of shopping as long as it's not taking too long. And then if you're, and then you can approve it. Give them a budget that you're comfortable with. Don't allow them to just buy and buy and buy and buy, because it's not their money, it's your money. And they don't want to look like they didn't do their job and not have the supplies that you need. But they also need to do it within the budget you're comfortable with. So have a system, have a budget, delegate when appropriate, check when appropriate, be super resourceful, and make sure you have good relationships with your reps. That's my advice.
Yeah, and I think if you don't have a system in place, you said it right off the bat, like it doesn't take long to establish one. You can reorganize your back room in a day or 2 days. Like you can get everything organized and labeled and set up how you want it to be. It only takes 2 to 3 months to establish trends. Like this is a fix that you can make really quick and have such huge impact on your bottom line, on your staff's happiness because they're not digging through piles of stuff to find something, on your patient experience because you're not running out of stuff when they're scheduled. Have to call them and say, sorry, I need you to come in another day. And you can just have such big impacts across your practice in so many ways. And it just doesn't take long to fix it. And if you're listening to this as the doctor and you're not that organized person, and that's okay, but I guarantee somebody on your team is, and somebody will love the opportunity to redo the cupboards and the cabinets and get it all set up.
It's a great way to give them more hours if they're asking for more time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Excellent. Well, thank you both for your expertise, and best of luck to your practices this year, Dr. Sandretti. We appreciate everything that you do for CDA and just being so willing to help others who might be asking these questions. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to Katrina and Sharon who answered all your questions to help me prep. I told them I would give them a shout out.
Thank you, Katrina and Sharon. We'll have to send you some goodies for your help as well.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you all. Bye.